Well, hello, Don't Bother Kids. Yeah, again, sorry it's taking me so long to get around to answering all your questions here, but they were very good questions. And thanks for giving me the opportunity actually to answer this one. I tried to address it in my response to Everett, but I spent so much time setting up the scenario that I really didn't have a lot of chance to talk about the solution proper. So this will give me a chance to go into it a little bit farther depth. Let me start out by telling a lame joke here. Actually, this is a true apocryphal story about my grandfather. My grandfather was a French Canadian, and he was a farmer. And he had a neighbor by the name of Peastrew. And there's lots of stories in my family about how my grandfather and this Peastrew character just really didn't get along. Because apparently this Peastrew character would steal stuff off of my grandfather's farm. Maybe one of these days I'll tell you about the story where grandfather caught him stealing gas out of his car by electrifying his car. But today I'm going to tell you the story about Peastrew in the chicken coop. Grandfather had a chicken coop, and he started noticing the chickens were missing. So one night he kind of is waiting in the shadows there with his double-barreled 12-gauge shotgun, and he hears this chickens gobbling and making noises like they do, and so he runs into the chicken coop and he says, "Peastrew, is that you in my chicken coop?" And Peastrew yells back, "Nobody here but us chickens." Yeah. So keep that punchline in mind, and I'll go into answering your question properly. All right. Basically, your question was, how can a set of values plus a coin flip be free will? Let me see if I can summarize your question here accurately. Basically, you're saying, I have no control over a non-deterministic neuron, almost by definition, right? I mean, if nothing's causing it to do what it's doing, I have no control over it. So how can it be freely willed if I had no control over it to start with in the first place? So, to warm into this, let me just briefly rehearse the scenario that I gave here. And once again, guys, I'm making empirical claims here, right? This could be proved right or wrong. This isn't conceptual analysis here. So, if it seems unrealistic to you, it might be. So, it's a matter of, cracking open our skulls and looking inside and seeing what's there to see whether this is true or not. Okay, at any rate, front and center here we have my favorite non-deterministic neuron. And at some time t less than 0, the previous neuron resets it to 0 volts. And it just kind of stays at 0 volts for a while. And then the previous neuron releases it. And, it might stay at 0 for a while and it might go up. But basically what happens is that the rest of my brain kind of puts my choices that I'm going to make here at various time intervals along this line. So whether I, give the kids an ice cream cone and a pie, or split the pie horizontally or vertically, or bribe them, this kind of thing, right? And then I just kind of wait and see what my neuron does. Does it go here? No. Does it go here? No. Does it go here? Yep. Ding, 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 ding. So I cut the pie vertically, right? So, let me graphically represent your question now. So basically what you're saying is there's this ego, the I, is over here in one part of the scenario, right? And then all these neurons are there. The ego kind of dispatches these neurons and sets up the choices there and then waits and sees what happens, and then that's the one it goes with. Kind of like using this neuron as a coin flip, basically, right? So what I want to argue is this picture is really kind of dualistic, right? I mean, it's if you look inside your head, there's the ego, there's the you that's over there in one corner of your skull. And then there's all your neurons in the other corner of your skull, and they aren't the same thing. Now, it really depends on what your worldview is. And, personally, I kind of lean towards materialism, and I kind of lean against dualism. I kind of think that, me and my neurons and my body, they're the same thing, right? So I consider this to be a much better picture. The ego is composed of my neurons. It's not like this whole process happens outside of the ego or in some other realm, or my ego is dispatching my neurons to do something, right? my neurons make up my ego. This from front to finish, this whole thing happens inside my ego and by my ego. So when the neuron makes its choice, that's really me making the choice, right? And this is where this is where the punchline comes in. There's nobody here but us chickens. I mean, inside my skull, it's just me. It's not me and a whole bunch of neurons, right? So basically, my claim is this, right? Normally functioning neurons in a normally functioning brain, whatever that does, it's you that's doing it, right? I can't really, go to the judge and say, my neurons made me do it, and blame my actions on my neurons because I am my neurons. So that's basically my my point there, right? So let me conclude with a advertisement here. Please see my vid on Dionysian rationality. I make another case that this sort of randomness in the brain can be more than just randomness in the brain, and show how really non-determinism and randomness can be in the service of rational behavior in a way in which it's not just me just being jerked around randomly by a rogue neuron. So I don't know if this answers your question or anything, but that's basically my story. Basically my story is, I reject dualism. Whatever my neurons do, whether it's deterministic or not deterministic, whatever my neurons are doing, I'm doing. All right.